Okay, welcome everybody. In this video, I want to continue working with histograms in ggplot2. So far, we've created histogram with ggplot2, a very basic histogram. We've talked about how we can change the number of bins or set the bin width for histograms, but we haven't talked about any other changes that we can make to the kind of generic histogram that comes out of ggplot2. So there's a link to this Colab notebook in the description of this video. In previous videos, we created a histogram that looks like the one above. And so if you want to catch up with where we're at, you can go to runtime, run before. That will install all the packages and run all these code cells. But what I want to focus on now is, this is an okay looking histogram, but it would be nice to like see some definition and be able to differentiate between the bar above one bin and the bar between the other bin. So these are all just kind of shaded in dark gray, and the outline for each of these bars is also in dark gray. So what I'd like to talk about is how we can change the color of the bars and give some outlines to the bars. So in the kind of very basic histogram, right, we enter the data, we enter the aesthetic mapping, which is here. We just map bill length, that's our numeric variable, to the x-axis, and then we use the histogram geom. And then we changed, there were some missing values. There were two missing values in this data set. So we set na.rm to true to get rid of to ignore the missing values when we create the plot. And then we can change the bins by setting the bin option or the bin width option. So I'm going to set the bin width to 2 for our plot. So I'm going to work with this plot over here, but what I would like to do is change the coloring. So we can change the coloring and the fill inside the geom histogram. So to change the fill, we just set the fill to whatever color we like. I'm going to set the fill to steel blue. And let me just show you what that would look like. So that changes things like this. That is perfectly fine looking. But what I might recommend is putting some outline around each of these bars, and that we can do with the color option. And here, ggplot speaks both American and British English, so you could spell it the British way as well. Either way. But if you set the color option to something else, usually black is a nice outline color, this gives a little bit more like definition to each individual bar above each individual bin. So maybe this is a little bit nicer than the histogram that we had above. I think it is, but that's my opinion. This makes it a little bit easier to kind of read each individual bar above each individual bin. And again, if you want to change the bin width or the number of bins, you can do that with this option over here. I mean, I think changing the number of bins or the bin width is more than a cosmetic change. I mean, that can really change the substance of your plot, right? If I change this to 20, that really changes how I read things quite drastically to this. Whereas if I change my color from steel blue to blue, that is definitely much more of a cosmetic change, and that doesn't really affect how I read the graph all that much. Okay, so that is a break for this video. In the next video, I just want to talk about how we could customize the axes and the tick marks that we set on the axes for a histogram. So one thing that might be nice would be to set the scale on the axes so that it's clear where the bins start and end. What are the bin ranges for each of the bins that we have on our histogram? So we'll talk about that in the next video. Thanks, everybody.